we go. All right, so here's the topics that I want to go through tonight. The first thing is, like I said, give you an update on where I'm at with the 2026 budget, which is probably about 98% done. Talk about what I see as financial targets with our general fund that I think the board really needs to look at and focus on. I'm going to go through what I'm calling the established budget components. There are certain components of next year's budget. I already know the factors, so I will let you know what those factors are. And then the next point is the budget assumptions, which is there are many things, especially at this time of the year, that are not known, but I have to put together a budget for you, for the district, for next year. It has to be done by June 30th, so I have to make a bunch of assumptions. So I'm going to walk through what those assumptions are. I'm going to walk through how I put together my capital budgeting. And then to move away from general fund, I'm going to talk about what I'm looking at in our food service budget for next year and for our community ed budget. So to go through 26, like I said, I'm about 98% done with this. Right now, where I'm at is our bottom line excess net revenues over expenses is right around $620,000. That would give us a projected fund balance of just short of $22.3 million, which is about a 17.5% fund balance of our expenses. So what changed from January till now? So if you recall, in January, the budget that we passed had an excess net revenue of just over $1,028,000. A few key things have happened since then. First large one being is that we received an unfavorable audit adjustment based upon audit done on our shared services enrollment FTEs to the tune of roughly 77 FTEs. So what that will do is that gets taken out of our state computation on our foundation revenue. Because these are fall FTEs, only 90% of that 77 will be taken out of our enrollment number for this year. So that would drop us about 70 FTEs at $10,000 an FTE. That's about $700,000. On the favorable side, which helped because our bogey now is about $400,000, is that the district receives, it's a standard procedure, the state gives us ORS or MIPSers offsets to help pay for all of the retirement dollars that we have to, the district has to pay on behalf of our employees. Those numbers were adjusted actually just this May, and they were adjusted in a favorable way. And so we were able to recognize that. So that did help our budget because I did not know that was coming and I did not budget it. And then finally, the number that I computed is what would be our supplement to community education in January is actually better than what we had budgeted. It's a lower amount. Reason being is we have been working with all the areas in community education to improve their operations, and actually, so we've seen a lot of favorable things happening. So that helped our budget. Okay, questions on 26? All right, let's talk about our general fund financial targets. So the first thing that I wanted to point out now that working through our budget workshop discussion is what type of a target do we want to set on annually as we work on our budget for the amount of excess revenues over expenses. So my recommendation to the board is as a starting point, your minimum should be $1 million. And the reason being is what I just talked about in what happened in 2026 is there are constantly audits being done on our FTEs. There are things that can happen that we are not prepared for. This way you have a pretty good buffer for when those things happen, we do not fall into the negative. So what it does is it provides coverage for any unforeseen events that are going to happen throughout the year. As we get later and later into the year, we get more and more information, we can get a little bit more focused on that number, but my recommendation is as a starting point is to make that number at least $1 million.
Dave, just in the spirit of if there's any members of the public who are watching this, if you go back to your prior slide, would you mind just maybe for the public's benefit explaining what that means where you say in the general fund that excess projected fund balance of $22.2 million. What does that mean in the context of this?
So what that means is since the inception of the school district, that is the total amount of excess revenues that have been accumulated over, I don't know exactly how many years, but a lot of years. And basically what it is it is our reserve. Let's look at it that way. And like anybody who runs a business or even runs a household, you always have a savings account or something stashed away because stuff happens, okay? Anything can happen. There's many, many different things that can happen in a school district. So from a financial standpoint, you always want to focus on having a strong fund balance, which gives you reserves that protect you when you know, unfavorable things happen. So in the financial world, we always focus on between 15 to 20% of our annual budget as a target of a reserve to keep. And I'm going to get into more detail in a little bit. Okay, so the second part is now that you will establish what your target is then how do you want to designate the use of those excess funds? There's different things that can be done. It can just be moved into the general fund reserve, which builds up our reserve so we have more security and more money set aside in case anything is to happen.
And so then just a clarifying point on this slide where you reference in your first bullet, general fund annual net excess revenue, it says target dollar recommended at 1 million. You're saying in the new proposed budget,
Yes.
we will contribute an additional, barring an unforeseen circumstance, that general fund balance, if everything worked out as proposed, would go up by approximately $1 million.
A minimum of $1 million. Yes. It can be used to, we have a capital projects fund. We can use some, all, a portion, whatever of the excess revenues to replenish and keep building that capital projects fund to be used for the district to fund capital projects that you all identify. Or it can also be used for designated programs. Like right now, we are going through, working on a pilot program with the ELA program, which is pretty costly. Do we want to like target, and I'm just using that as an example. So if something like that comes up in the future, do we want to target to make excess funds in order to pay for something like that? So there's different ways you can designate the use of your excess fund. So finally, what I want to get back to your point, what I want to talk about, another thing, and when I talked about the fund balance is from a financial standpoint, when you look at the strength of a district, a business, anything, you always look at their balance sheet, because the balance sheet is what shows you what you are worth and the accumulation of all years of activity where you stand. When we're talking about our excess net revenues over expenses, that's for 1 year. That is a small window in your total operations since inception. So the real strength of any business or district is based in their balance sheet. The fund balance is part of that balance sheet. So is the capital projects fund, because we've taken money from the general fund reserves and put them into that. So when we talk about, we like to have 15 to 20% of our budget in our general fund reserves. Here's pretty much a really good example why. That $22.3 million that I showed you as our projected fund balance at the end of this year, based upon our level of operations, gives us 46 days of cash on hand. The reason you want to look at that is we know stuff can happen. Governments can shut down. We've had a pandemic. There could be a point in time where the district will go through a period where our revenues will stop, when we have to keep operating. We can operate for 46 days before we before our reserves are gone. So that's our protection, and that's really how you want to look at this and how we protect ourselves. All right, so let me walk through my components of the fiscal year 27 budget, and the first is these are the known components. So the healthcare rate, cap rates, which are established by the state, which is how much the district has to contribute towards the cost of our employees' health insurance. That is going up by 3%. The effective date of that is January 1st. So the overall impact of this will be 1.5% because it's only for half of the year. And then also, too, we go through open enrollment in November, and people can change how many people enroll in our insurance and how many people may come off, it will change. Our overall population may change. So that's where your healthcare is gonna, so your healthcare expense is gonna change a little bit come January 1st. Okay, another big portion of our expenses is what we have to pay to MIPSers for our employees for their retirement. So there are 20 options that all employees get to select from for the programs that they want to participate in for retirement. And each of those have a different percentage that gets withheld from, that the district has to pay out of their pay that goes into their fund for retirement. When you look at the 26 rates and the 27 rates, they're very, very close to each other, so there is no significant change to what the district is going to have to pay out in retirement as a percentage of employee salaries. The effective date of these rates is always October 1st, so basically during our fiscal year, we have kind of a blended rate between last year's rates and this year's rates, because our fiscal year is 7/1 to 6/30. Then the final piece, which we are all well aware of, is based upon our bargaining last year. Our increase rate for 2027 is 2.5%. And for anybody in the district who is not part of a bargaining unit, we use that 2.5% for their increase also. All right, the budget assumptions that I'm putting through. This is the stuff that is unknown. So first thing is the biggest of all is the state aid foundation per pupil amount. The good news is this year, all three of the legislative branches are proposing the same amount, which is $10,300. That's a $250 increase per pupil. That's 2.5%. The historical increase over the last 15 years of the state increase has been 2.6%. So it's pretty much a normal year, which is good. On the enrollment side, the way I put together the projected enrollment for next year is I split our enrollment into two pieces. One is from the Brighton students and the shared services students. For the Brighton students, I take the actual FTEs that we have right now on our books, and we have a 5-year enrollment projection, school by school, and I take the change, what that projection is showing as a change for 2027. I adjust our Brighton student FTEs by that. And then I meet with shared services, and they will give me their estimate on what they think their enrollment will be for next year. Not a large increase in shared services this coming up year is projected. We have no new schools. We don't see any significant change in programs at any of the schools. But I do want to point out, in 2025, we had about 160 FTE audit adjustment. And in 26, I talked about we had the 77 FTE adjustment. My budget for next year has those numbers coming back because we've made program changes to address the issues that were cited in the audit. So I'm counting those back in our FTEs. So our overall 2027 increase is just short of 124 FTEs, or 1.2%. As far as the categoricals go, there's nothing really new here. At risk, it looks like, is going to continue to be funded. Our big question now for this next coming up year is, do we want to opt into the 31AA Mental Health Security Grant or not? And again, continuing on with other categoricals of funding, CTE programs, robotics, bilingual ed, those all appear to be continuing, so I have rebudgeted those amounts. So kind of the other miscellaneous items that go into the revenue, as I talked about the MIPSers cost offsets, the state gives an indication of how they're going to fund those coming next year, so I use that to base my numbers for this coming up year. Interest income, I have held steady. I don't see right now anything that's going to significantly change the level of interest that we're earning on our cash instruments. That may change during the year, but I don't see anything right now, so I'm keeping it the same. We get a fairly significant amount of money from LESA, mainly the special ed millage. So I am budgeting that to be at the same level. And then the title grants, we will continue to file for the title grants. Those come from the federal government, so we'll keep, those are included in the budget too, at basically the same level. All right, on the expense side, the biggest portion of the expenses is the staffing, and the way I approach the staffing is our HR department keeps staffing sheets for all of the schools. They're a dynamic document that keeps changing all the time. I take those positions and I built them into the budget based upon where everybody's going to be at all the different buildings. Those are still in progress. When we have, at the end of the year, we will always have people that are leaving either from retirements or resignations. So when those come up, I have a default salary position that I put in all of the schools to fill those, so we at least have a budget in place for those positions. On the purchase services side, there's no big changes here, anything different. We have a good amount of contracted staff that goes through Regis staff. I track the utilization, so I take 2026's utilization, put in a little bit of increase, and put that in the budget for next year. As far as our athletic coaches go, John Thompson uses the bargaining agreement percentages to increase the coaches' salaries. And then one of our biggest expenses is shared services. We pay 7% of the revenue in a fee. So basically, I compute their revenue and come up to an amount from there. So teaching supplies, the way I've always approached teaching supplies is the schools all get a per student amount based upon their projected enrollment. And up until this year, that amount has been $65 for elementary schools, $75 per student for intermediate and middle schools, and $80 per student for the high school. In the 27 budget, I am putting in $75 per student across the board for elementary and intermediate and middle school. And the reason is when I was meeting with the principals and talking about next year's budget, they informed me that with the new ELA pilot, there will be a lot of supplies that teachers will need to purchase in order to put that program into place. So that's why I put in additional dollars for them. Basically, then what happens is the schools themselves will take that total amount of dollars and then they'll divide it up amongst their different programs. And then on the supply side, as far as our utilities go, we have futures contracts, so we're locked into prices for electricity and natural gas. I get those new amounts from our consultant, which is Executive Energy. I already have those numbers, so I have built those in. On a capital basis in the general fund budget, I put in building needs, not our large district needs, but our building needs. And then the last piece that goes in there is the subsidy from community education. Questions on the assumptions? All right. So really quick, I just want to go through how I walk through and have, at least right now, put into my proposed budget for the capital. So like I said, in the general fund, under capital outlay expense, what I go through is I meet with all the principals and I find out if they have any operational needs in their building. Typically, it's something like, I need to replace the furniture in this classroom. I need new tables in this room. You know, it can vary different things, but I meet with all the principals to go through that. Then I meet with our facilities folks to find out if there's anything in the district that they need. And then at this time of the year, because we really don't know stuff that's going to happen and we want to have budget dollars put away, I put dollars in a general amount in the facilities capital outlay budget just to address anything that comes up. And then the same basic approach happens with athletics. They get a standard amount each year, so they have dollars set aside if they need to do anything capital-wise as it comes up. When it comes to the capital projects fund budget, right now what I've put in the budget for next year is just all the committed projects that were approved through the facilities committee. I haven't added anything else to that except for that. That's just because that's what I know for right now. Questions on that? All right. On to food service. So the three budgets that have been proposed at the state level have continued to, or show that they're going to continue to fund do a full funding of meals for next year. So I put that into the budget. We expect the volumes to remain the same because enrollment's not changing very much, and pretty much because the state is subsidizing it, everybody takes free meals. On the expense side, our staffing level at all the buildings is going to stay consistent. According to the contract, like I talked about before, there's a 2.5% increase in there based on the contract. We continue to budget for significant capital purchases because the whole goal is to break even in our food service budget, and with the excess funds from the state, that means there's a lot of money left over for us to make capital purchases and improvements in food service. And then based upon Mrs. Tierney and Mr. Browder's recommendations, we are going to implement a scratch cooking initiative for next year, which will require one additional position for a new head chef, which will be in the budget, and then a one-time purchase of supplies for that initiative. And finally, community ed budget.
With an additional chef, right?
Can you go back to the other slide for a second? Can we talk about that?
What's that? Which one?
The head chef.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that just a little bit?
It's-
Costs and details on it.
Estimated cost for a position like that is, salary and benefits is $48,000 to $50,000 a year. Okay.
So this is coming out of the food service budget, not the general fund.
That is correct. It has to come out of the food service budget. That is food service position. It is a separate fund.
Can I just ask another question about the supply cost? You have an extra supply cost in there for going back to the scratch cooking?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. What do we anticipate that being?
I don't have the amount.
Okay.
I will get that
Because
for
our understanding from meetings is that it wouldn't be a significant difference, and so that's why I'm interested in what that means. I can see where we may need to purchase equipment, which I would assume could come out of some of those other funds.
Yes, the
But
capital.
the supply cost aspect, I'm not clear about.
So we received a proposal from Mr. Browder, our food service director, and the equipment needs is I think it says a I don't know if it's a 4-inch or 4-foot hotel pans and lid, cooling racks, additional transport, package supplies as needed. That's connected to a scratch cooking conversation that we had
Transferring
at the
from
student
meals to
nutrition
the-
meeting,
okay.
correct. And it was one additional person in order to begin doing some of that scratch cooking.
So is there a way for us to kind of triangulate on that, what that position looks like, so that we can make sure we utilize that to the best of our abilities in the district?
Absolutely. I think at the next student nutrition meeting, we should talk about that. I mean, obviously, we received a written proposal from Mr. Browder this morning, and I shared that, and I think we'd all like more detail on it, but,
More detail.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions? All right, so community ed, like I said before, we've actually been doing a lot of work over the last 6 months with all the different components of community education, and it's actually been really, really favorable. I'll start with Tot Spot. They've had a really, really good response to coming up with ways to improve their financial performance. So first thing is they haven't raised their price in a couple of years, so they looked at what the market price is in our area, and so they're comfortable to put in a price increase next year of 12%. We've also, with the senior center moving over here downstairs, we're in the process of repurposing all that space into classrooms, and so we will have 2 additional classrooms, which will hold 3-year-olds, which is from a financial standpoint, is the most efficient from a cost standpoint, because the younger and smaller the child, the more staff is needed. So with the 3-year-olds, it is our most efficient area. And then the other thing that we've been working on with them, because they have a very significant salary cost, is coming up with ways to really manage that, to make sure that we're making good use of all the people that we have, because that is a large portion of their expense. So based upon all this, right now, I'm still haven't quite finished their budget, but they'll probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of under $100,000 as a subsidy, whereas in the past, they've been running like 300. So it's been a really good working with them. With our senior center,
So Dave, again, just for the benefit of the public, what do you mean by that? When you say $100,000 subsidy?
so the child care center, and I've lost my off my screen. So the child care center does not run profitable.
Correct.
So, and for some of the community ed programs, they do not run profitable. And so when you accumulate all their numbers and put those together, the district has to fund that
Their
difference.
expenses exceed the revenue that they receive.
That is correct.
and thus the district needs to fund the imbalance.
That is correct. Yes, yes.
Can I ask a question about the childcare? Are you anticipating any increase in the four-year preschool, or are we set with what the state's allowing us for the next year?
It'll depend on the budget. We've requested we'd like to have 2 additional classrooms for 4-year-olds. We asked for it this year, and we did not receive it. So that request is in again, because I think we have the demand in this district. But we will have to wait till the budget's completed. Those are allocated by the county, not locally.
So when would you?
They will not do that until the budget is done.
Okay.
Last year, the budget was so late. I think that was part of the challenge.
Basically started?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So just as a follow-up to that, so when the state approves its budget, then it goes to LESA, and then LESA determines the number of 4-year-old classrooms within each district that's going to be funded?
Yeah, it's based on seats. So LESA will get a certain number of seats. So if it's the exact same, then we keep the exact same number. But they also have requests, not just from the traditional public schools, but also the charter schools and private care providers. That was a big change that happened in the last year. So last year, those private providers, as I understand, got a lot of the additional seats that we got last year. Going into this year, I think if I'm correct, Dave, on this, is that the GSRP budget is more of a rollover, not big increase in the state
Correct.
budget. Ms. Urbane, am I correct on that? So
Yes.
I do not anticipate a big growth in the number of seats, so we're probably not going to get those 2 additional
That's a
classrooms.
pass-through expense, though, basically.
It is a
right?
pass-through from the
Yes, it
state
is.
to the
Yeah.
county
No change
to
in
us,
the dollar.
correct.
Yep.
It'll be no difference
Yeah.
for us,
Okay.
correct.
Correct.
I just wanted to be clear, especially for the public. So money that should be theoretically allocated to us to educate K-12 kids is being used to subsidize daycare. Is there any income thresholds or anything like that for those that are basically getting subsidized daycare?
There is a program for some of the families to get subsidized daycare based upon, they have to show deed. They have to show the financial deed. There's nothing else.
For the 4-year-olds, if you get a slot, no matter what your income is, if you are in a 4-year-old GSRP classroom, which is a state-funded preschool, it is free.
Okay,
No- So
let me-
yes,
That is not actually what I was asking. So we are using money that that is allocated to us to educate K-12 kids, or GSRP, 4-year-old through 12th grade kids. And we are subsidizing daycare. Because if you go to a private daycare facility, theoretically, they break even. Nobody's subsidizing them, right? But here, we're using money that should be allocated to educate our kids K through 12 to subsidize daycare for those that get in. My understanding is there's no income threshold to apply. So it's basically whoever's lucky enough to get into our program gets subsidized daycare, regardless of their income.
Right, there is no income requirement.
Sorry, say that again?
There is no
Yeah.
income requirement.
So just making a point that we are subsidizing a portion of our community's daycare simply because they are lucky enough to get into our program. It is my view that program, just like any private daycare program, should at least break even.
Yes, and to that point, absolutely agree, and that's what we're working towards. The amount of the deficit from last year was pretty significant, and we're making some significant changes to address that. Don't know that that's going to happen in year 1, but the goal is to do that as quickly as we can.
Are we legally obligated to provide that daycare service?
so we are not, but what I would mention on this is that these are all future bulldogs. So this is the pipeline, this is how they get started, but no, we are not required.
We're not legally obligated, correct?
We are not legally obligated.
So with a majority vote from the board, we could completely terminate that program in Great Area Schools, correct?
Correct.
And
I don't think that would be advisable, but you could
just-
absolutely do that.
Just to follow up, we did talk about this in the Finance Committee, and it was our direction in 2 years to try to get this financially stable. There is a lack of daycare altogether. So I don't recommend ending it, but I do want to get financially solvent, because it is unfair that we are taking money away from our K-12 kids to subsidize daycare.
Well, if I may add, that's not the only program we have that we're
Correct.
subsidizing. So
Correct.
That's
I
right.
would like to see.
Ken, your microphone.
Thanks. I'd like to see us, find out what those subsidies are, what those programs are. I mean, we know that the BCPA is one of those that has one of those problems. And, we've been talking about trying to get these monies that we're spending, under control and figure out how we can at least make them break even. So, this is a good one, but we've got others.
Absolutely.
And I would like to see a committee get together and I know it can go to the finance, but maybe we need just a committee that can go through the district and find these and find out what we're subsidizing or what we're losing money on and
We
see
have
if they're
done-
worth keeping.
We've done.
We've done
That's
that.
what we're doing.
I'm just trying to make it a
Right.
point for the public that we have looked at this, and
Mm-hmm.
we are
So
we are
what-
currently
What
subsidizing.
makes it challenging to establish a break-even or better situation with the daycare service that we're providing, like, tomorrow?
My only thing was we were subsidizing them a significant amount. We weren't sure that you could do it in a year. Otherwise, families would probably go through sticker shock on the cost. But
Then what would their option be?
again, I'm not opposed to it, but I did acquiesce in Finance Committee that
I
we
would
could do it in
fully
two.
support
But
a proposal to ask the involved parties to get it to break even by the start of the school year. Something for us to discuss tonight, but I've never heard of a situation in the private market where you have a business that's losing $100,000 a year and you just kick the can down the road. Like, let's get it to break even and ideally make a little bit of money. And all of our financials are fully transparent and open and available to the public. We're not making a dime off of anybody. All we're trying to do is ensure that the programs that we provide to the community are not hemorrhaging money. Like, I don't think that's a heavy ask.
And, just, you made a statement, these are future Bulldogs. How do we know, what vets that? What does that mean? Do they live in the district and pay taxes here?
Yeah, many of them, most of them do. Most of these are Brighton children. I don't know how many people that are in our school today are we don't have that exact data, but Tot Spot is a feeder to our school district. So when you're talking about enrollment, one of the most important spots to seed your enrollment as a school district is preschools, getting them in. I think it's really important. It's an important piece of the puzzle, obviously, from that side of things, but instructionally, it's very important as well. And there's a countywide effort, collaborative around the instruction, dealing with preschool education. It is daycare when we have our younger students, but we are transitioning more to preschool when it comes to our 2s and 3-year-olds, obviously our 4-year-olds, trying to really make it a robust and meaningful preschool experience so that our students go to kindergarten ready for kindergarten. So this is key for us instructionally, as well as getting them involved with enrollment. So
I think, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Roger.
No, I was just going to say, I think what's also important to keep in mind is that as we talk about the historical deficit that the community education budget has operated under historically, it's primarily been, to a large extent, a policy view from the district to subsidize some of these programs. And I know we've been talking about the Tot Spot, childcare and that deficit, but another good example is the senior center.
Agreed.
So the senior
I
center.
remember we had a good conversation about it.
Right, the senior center has operated at a deficit for well prior to my time on the board. And there's been conversations that, most communities, the senior centers are subsidized by the townships and the cities and the community. Unfortunately, for political reasons probably, that's never happened there's been partial credits given to some of the senior center members, but it's just been a decision and a policy of the district to subsidize that over the course of, since way long before, like I said, I was on the board. So I think the question then ultimately is, you know, getting back to your point, and I understand in the private sector, that wouldn't be tolerable to just have, unless there's some business reason that you want a lost leader.
Go bankrupt, you have to close.
But, I mean, overall, but I'm talking about certain aspects, like the community education budget is minuscule compared to our general fund. So if we're operating at a community ed budget, what we'll have to decide, and it's a conversation we can have, is A, do we subsidize any of the programs to any degree? And if we're not going to do that, then that's going to obviously impact not just the childcare, but senior center, you know, BCPA, I mean, all of these programs, which was part of the conversation in the finance committee was we need to tighten up and significantly reduce these deficits. We discussed the idea that that's probably not going to happen overnight, but if we make a significant move in the right direction, there'll be greater buy-in with all of the stakeholders in those various organizations, and hopefully we can get to the point, whether it's year 2, to where we get to that, where we are break even and we're not. But some of these are going to be difficult political conversations, like the senior center. You know, if we're going to take a position that needs to be, you know, non-subsidized, then there's going to have to be some significant changes in that program, you know, so.
When and how do we get municipalities in on this conversation? Because it is generally a municipality.
We have
spent.
We tried. I would say we
Well,
tried.
I was
You
part
were
of some of
there.
that trying
Yeah.
a few years back, and it didn't go
Well,
very well.
even this year, we tried.
But when
So-
do we say, okay, Livingston, we want all these things, apparently we do, because they want the school to do it. We're using FTEs to subsidize these things. When are you gonna just say it needs to be a taxable expense? I'd pay a little more on my taxes at home to have all these amenities and leave the school alone. We'd operate better. We wouldn't have all these expenses. That'd be money we'd be using elsewhere, perhaps to fix some of the things that we need to get fixed around here. So I think we've asked, I think we've been nice about it. I think it's time to start saying, listen, we can't continue like this. I mean, if the general public knew that we were using FTEs to fund all of this stuff that has nothing to do with children's education, I mean, we know it, I'm sure people in the audience know it, but what are they gonna think about that? Maybe if they found out, then we'd have the community support saying, hey, yeah, okay, this makes sense now.
I don't discount what you're saying, but I think Mr. Meyer's point is something that maybe needs to be this is a small portion. I think there's other areas in addition that we need to look at the budget to tighten. It's not just this one. So I'm not saying we don't need to do this, but I don't want to get overly focused on this and forget the wider expanse of budget items that we probably need to talk about and really like pare down and see like where can we cut dollars that we're spending that we need to be using somewhere else, so.
Our colleague on this board seated to your left in our last facilities committee meeting mentioned the top item on this list, a new well for Hilton Elementary School, which coincidentally is the exact same amount as the budget deficit for the hotspot childcare. So the $100,000 deficit we're running there could pay for a well that is needed at Hilton Elementary School to provide water to the kids who are at Hilton Elementary School. So, I mean, I think that these are real, every dollar does count.
Absolutely.
And I'm in full favor of completely eliminating all of the deficit spending on these programs. And whatever work needs to be done to achieve that, I think we should expedite versus just kind of suggest it's gonna take a few years to get them into the black. But we can talk about that later this evening.
Mr. Jones, I had a question about the increase there. You said 12% price increase.
Yes.
For daycare?
Yes.
Okay. And that was going to get us partially there. What would it look like to get us all the way there? Just so I understand what that increase means.
Let's do this. I'm not done yet
Okay.
with the budget,
Okay.
because this is next year's budget. So let me get those numbers together,
Okay.
so we kind of know what we're shooting for,
Okay.
and go from there.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else before I move on? Yep.
I don't know if it's under, where do you have the BCPA on this?
I somehow did not put them on, but I'm more than welcome to talk about it.
I just wanted to make a point, when you were looking, we talked about this in the Finance Committee as well, that the BCPA looked like it was running significantly in the red. However, all of the facilities cost of the BCPA was being allocated to the BCPA and none allocated to educational expenses. So when the BCPA is being
Yes.
used, did that get fixed?
So, to that point, when I had my budget meeting with the BCPA leaders, we talked about that, and we came up with we broke out the BCPA into 3 different activities. One activity is running their public programs and shows that they do roughly half a dozen a year. The second is they rent out that facility, and they make money off of, or they charge money for people to come in and use our theater, and we provide staff for that when they have an event, and we collect money from them. So was the second piece. And the third piece is in talking with the leaders from the BCPA, roughly 50% of their time is spent working with our high school students, teaching them all about theater. So to me, more than half of the BCPA deficit, probably about 3/4 of it, is because they are spending their time with our students in the high school and in Scranton, teaching them about theater. So I think what we have to do is take a look at how we want to account for that.
Okay, I think the BCPA deficit is not as large as what we had seen
Yes.
originally, and
Yes.
we should account for some of that as educational expense, so.
Yes, and also too, on top of that, we've had at the monthly board meetings with the BCPA board about how the fact that they've always focused on trying to break even per show, but they've never added in the indirect costs that go with a show. And so they have to look at all the costs and break even to that, not just direct costs. So that's another thing that we're working on there too. So that is correct. And I can't believe, as y'all were talking, I was looking at this going, I didn't even put it on here when we should talk about that. So the last few items, we talked about the senior center. They are continuing to look to expand local support. Their membership, once they moved downstairs last year, it's a great facility downstairs, their membership has increased greatly. Very curious to see, because in the month of May is when they really put on their membership push for next year, so I haven't seen their numbers yet. When it comes to our BARC program and the swim program, basically, I don't see any changes for next year, same level of programming and staffing and costs. And then when it comes to our facility rentals, there's another area we haven't raised our prices in a couple years. So we're looking at probably somewhere around a 10% increase in our facility rental fee for next year to help put more dollars into the community ed program. And that is it. Any other questions?
What's the total deficit in community ed?
I'm not done yet, so I don't have that.
Roughly.
I want to say somewhere around 500,000 for 2026.
Okay, roughly $500,000.
Yes. And I am expecting that to be better for 2027.
Quick question, on the senior center, we had a gentleman come and talk to us about Brighton Township, and have we followed up on that, and is Brighton Township participating?
So we have had conversations. Brighton Township, I know that they were having conversations, if I'm correct, I think they were having conversations at their council level. I can check back in with them on where that's at, but that is their conversation. But I'll reach out to Mr. Vick and just see where they're at in that conversation.
Okay, so just my last item is just to give you an idea on the timeline. So you know what to expect for the rest of the year. So right now, what I call pre-July, now until June 30th. Obviously, I'm working on putting together all these budgets. I'm in the process of still putting together 2027, so I don't have any final numbers. My goal is to have numbers put together for the June 1st Finance Committee meeting, so the Finance Committee can go through the budget before I make the presentation for the final approval on June the 8th. Then from July to August, we'll start to learn some of our numbers. Hopefully, the state budget will be finalized, where we will learn what the per pupil foundation amount really is and what our grant awards are in all our categoricals. And then also too, in July and August, our auditors will be out to audit fiscal year 26. So usually right around the end of August, I'll have a really good idea of how we're looking, how the audit has gone, and if there's any significant adjustment or changes. Then in September through November is where we get into where we're going to find out our enrollment numbers. So first week of October is count day, and then those numbers, I will get a preliminary copy, and first week in November, during October, they will be audited. First week in November, we will get an audited report with the numbers that are going to go to the state. So we'll have a good idea of what our enrollment is. So with all that information, at the January board meeting, there will be our first budget amendment will be proposed. And then again, we'll be back in a year to do this again for next year's budget.
So I have a couple questions, Dave. So we're meeting tonight, May 27th.
Yes,
According to this timeline, the Finance Committee is meeting on June 1st, which is Monday, this coming Monday. And the proposed timeline is that we as an entire board would approve the school district's 2027 initial budget a week later on June 8th.
that is correct.
How is that, like, how does that hold water, that timeline? Like, we haven't even started the workshop yet. We're just literally going through, like, the timeline. We're gonna do a workshop tonight. The Finance Committee is gonna meet on Monday. And 1 week later, we won't have any meetings between now and then. On Monday, June 8th, you're gonna come in and ask us to approve the budget for 2027.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first year that we've had an actual workshop to go through this, because typically what we've done is had it as a for future action, and then had, Mr. Jones or whomever. So this is basically in lieu of because we didn't have a second May meeting scheduled on our original meeting dates, so we wanted to schedule a workshop, obviously. And
So
so the
would it-
timeline, it really isn't any different than what we've done in past years.
What the review period is.
But
No,
let me- can I add to that?
I mean, part of it's not just the board, it's the public,
No,
right?
no, but just,
Normally, if you came in for future action on June 8th and said, this is the proposed 2027 budget, not just the board, but the public has an opportunity to review that, what you propose, digest it, and then in the next meeting, you come in and say, I am coming for approval of the budget after the
Right.
board and the public has had an opportunity to review it.
right. The budget must be approved by June 30th, and June 8th is your June board meeting.
So
where
maybe
you
we
can-
need to call a special meeting later in the month of June to afford
But-
everybody involved an opportunity to digest the budget?
Well,
Well, we
that's,
can certainly talk
that's
about
up
that
for
on
you to
June
dis-
8th. I mean,
but I also just want to point out really
Or,
quick that,
hang on June 8th, why can't we talk about it tonight? We have a full quorum here.
well, but if the budget hearing, which statutorily is required to take place, happens on June 8th, and we review the budget, and it's a public meeting, and the board believes that it needs further time, a majority of the board believes it has a need for further time to review it, then we can table it and schedule it for a special meeting. I mean, it's certainly something we can do.
So does any other members of the board feel that it would be beneficial for us and for the public to have more than 7 days? Or not even 7 days. When will we receive the official budget that will be presented on June 8th?
so my goal would be, after the Finance Committee reviews it on June 1st, I will be putting together my resolution, and then it can be sent out to the board prior to the June 8th meeting.
When roughly?
June 1st is a Monday. As long as the Finance Committee doesn't have any significant changes, it wouldn't take me more than a day to get that out.
So say the 3rd of June,
Yeah,
which with the
That's
weekends,
fair.
five calendar days?
yep.
So we and the public would have 5 calendar days. Will the public see the budget before June 8th?
It's not typical that the public will see the budget before the resolution is presented to the board.
So if we followed our normal process and it was for future action, you would come in, reference the budget that would be available for the public to review, and then we would then come to the next meeting as an.
No, for future action would only be, we will ask the board to approve the next year's budget at the next meeting.
Right.
There would be no numbers that would come with it. It would just be the description
It
that,
wouldn't be included in the board packet?
no, it's not ready.
It's not ready.
Because there's still numbers that are, I still don't have all the numbers that I need to put everything together.
Oh, I thought you said it would be ready.
No. Like, as of now, so what would have happened is at our May meeting, for future action, it would have been on there for the budget, and there would be no numbers ready. So all we would have said, would say is, we will be asking the board to approve the budget in June, but there would be no report that would go with that. That's how we've done it in the past.
Yeah, and I mean, I will say, the 10 years I've been on the board, the night of the hearing where there's going to be for action for the approval, there is the statutorily required public hearing. Anybody from the public can comment on the proposed budget, because it is it's a public hearing beyond just the call to the public. It's a special opportunity for anybody from the public to comment on the proposal. In the 10 years that I've been here on the board, there's probably been 2 people in 10 years that have said anything about the budget, about that statutory process, the right to, have their voice heard. And certainly they're welcome to do that. That's just,
But I mean, even
that's,
for
the
us, though,
process
Roger,
is
wouldn't
not
it be
different.
like, how can we possibly digest, if we're doing a workshop tonight, how is it practical that we as a board, with all of the things that have been discussed relative to this upcoming budget, in lieu of the bond vote, how is it practical for us, following this workshop, to have Dave then meet with the finance committee next Monday, and within 3 days, he publishes a proposed budget that we then would review, provide input, feedback on, and then in that 5 days, be prepared to come into a meeting and vote and approve it? It just, to me, it seems, like for
all I'm
budget
saying
the
is
size
that-
of our district, it seems like that's a pretty aggressive timeline.
And what I can say is that that's worked the previous 10 years. No, there's never been a year where any board member said, this is, too rushed, we need an opportunity to have another meeting. I'm not saying that we can have another meeting. I think what we should do is, obviously, the challenge, as has been described, is there's no state budget. So there's a lot of assumptions that have to be made, which was part of why we wanted to have this meeting, so that he could share what those assumptions conceptually are going to be. And then, obviously, the actual hearing will take place on the 8th. If after the hearing and the presentation and the numbers, and after the board members have had an opportunity to review those numbers for however many days, 3 days, 4 days, whatever it is, they don't feel comfortable actually approving the budget at that point and want further time to study it and call for a special meeting later in June, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It ultimately just comes down to whether the majority of the board feels like they're ready, based on the information that's been provided. So, yeah, that's why I'm saying we can make that decision, because we don't know the numbers, and if there's questions about the numbers or things that should be changed, then certainly we can table it and have a special meeting later in the month.
I was just looking at the dates from last year. We had for future action is May 12th, and then June 9th was the budget. So
In
there
between
was,
those meetings, we had a lot of communication that
yep,
flowed.
there was an additional couple of weeks.
Yep. Okay, second question and last for your portion here. The bridge. So in prior years, we've had conversations as it relates to budget around the bridge. And I didn't see any reference to that in the deck. It's something I do intend, and I mentioned this in our last formal meeting that I intended to bring up during the workshop. Where is the bridge program today? And how would you compare the current financial health of the bridge program to the prior 2 or 3 years? I'm talking student enrollment, graduation rates, cost to fund the program. To me, it's a meaningful
Yes, it is.
item for
Oh,
us to
absolutely.
consider.
Okay. I don't have that information broken out, because the bridge is just part of the district's budget. But that is something I could definitely put together, and as part of the package, let you know where we're at with the bridge program.
Sure. I shared information with the board this last week. I've given a couple updates on the bridge. Obviously, I've been working closely with the bridge staff for a little over a year on trying to improve the quality of the program as well as enrollment for the program. I think quality, number one, but also enrollment. Those two things go together. So going into next year, our enrollment as of right now, our projection is that we will be flat going into next year, that it will be similar going into next year. There are some other conversations going on a larger scale around the bridge, and I'm happy to talk about some of those. I mentioned some of those in my last update. The bridge, as far as where it's headed, this is what I would say, is that we have fabulous staff, outstanding teachers, super dedicated. They're having a great experience there. I would say our biggest weakness in the bridge has been enrollment. The better we're doing at the high school with addressing students that are struggling with credit recovery and failing classes and whatnot, the less kids that are needing to come to the bridge. And that has been the biggest impact on their enrollment. So I think we do need to have conversation about the bridge configuration moving forward. I think it's a fruitful conversation. We've been having that in a transparent way with the bridge staff. They're aware that improvements need to be made. They've come up with a number of strategies. They're really trying to bolster their career, the career aspect of the bridge portion. They've had some new ideas. Happy to have Henry Vecchione come back in and talk about some of the ideas that they have. They're doing a lot more with work study. But I think that they're trying to make some real improvements, but it is a conversation I think that the board needs to have, both instructionally as well as financially.
How many students are currently enrolled?
So the actual enrollment is about 60 to 65, right in that range, but about 16 of those are fully online students. So you have about 50 that are inside of this building
Okay.
on a given day.
And what's the attendance rate of those students, of the 50 students, and even the online students? What's the attendance rate look like?
So I don't have the numbers in front of you, but it is one of the weaknesses that the bridge staff would talk about. It's one of the challenge areas. They are changing their attendance policy and procedures to try to address some of those, because that's one of their biggest concerns is attendance.
I mean, we had Mr. Vecchione come in the last meeting.
Right.
And talked about how much the kids value that environment. I agree with you, the staff is unbelievable. I've had an opportunity to meet all of the staff, they're unbelievable. There also is a reality in life that if a person doesn't necessarily want to be helped, it's tough to help those individuals. And step number one in a school is you have to show up to school. So if you're unwilling to attend school, it's really, really hard for a great staff to support and help students who don't want to be helped or who may have limitations to get the help, but those limitations are not the responsibility of the school district. They're the responsibility of the parents and adults who guard those children.
Right.
So I have, over the course of my tenure on the board, have really started to just struggle to understand why we as a district put the money and the resources into the program when the students who we are supposedly serving have attendance rates that suggest all those efforts and all those dollars and all those investments aren't really as appreciated as maybe they would be in other environments. And we have, in a school district like this, we have decisions to make on where we invest the dollars and the revenue that come into Brighton area schools. And the question, I think that is a valid question, with the space in the classrooms that we have for those students, what other avenues of opportunity could we provide to students who would be thrilled to come to Brighton area schools every day and be a contributor to what we're trying to build in the community?
I would be cautious because, saying that there's attendance issues anywhere, you could say the high school has attendance issues. We have students that struggle at the high school with attendance. So it's not all the students. There are students that are there literally every single day.
I will go on the record publicly, there's a major attendance problem in the bridge.
I don't disagree.
Major
I'm just saying that
attendance
there are students that
problem.
are there
So it
every
needs to
single
be
day
addressed.
that are exactly what you're talking about, that are taking advantage of every opportunity. I just want to just say it's not everybody.
And-
But there are students that are definitely not getting the most out of that experience. Happy to talk about this, the instructional side of it. In that report, I talked about some of the other ideas and everything on the Friday report. Would be happy to have that conversation. But I think everybody agrees that there needs to be improvement in this area. What I would say is that having nothing cannot be an option. We have to do something for students that are not finding success in the traditional environment. Whatever that might be, I think we have to have that commitment. Can we do it better? Absolutely. We have some ideas that we're working on. I think we could have Mr. Vecchione in to maybe talk about what some of those things are. But I think when we get our enrollment and we get those pieces in the fall, I think this is an important conversation that this board needs to have. So you're 100% right on that.
Without going too deep on this, because the whole premise or the purpose of this evening is to drill into the budget, but it's
Right.
related. There's a certain population of students who we've been told, I don't know that I necessarily agree, who we've been told don't exist well in the current traditional school environment of the Brighton High School as an example. But one of our traditional school buildings, Scranton and Hilton, wherever. And thus we've created this special, unique environment that is the bridge for these students because they thrive or do much better in those types, that more non-traditional environment. If that's the case, then why, when they go into that environment, do they not come to school? If that environment is what is needed to nurture them and to help them, and to use your words, you encourage us to give strong consideration to having that alternative learning environment, then why, when we have provided it with phenomenal instruction, why then do those students not nurture and grow in that environment the way we hope they would?
Well, I think every child's experience is different. We have students that have substance abuse issues. We have other students that have mental health issues. There's all these different things that we could talk about for each child, so it's hard to paint with a wide brush on it. At the end of the day, I would say it's accountability, and that's one of the things that we're talking about. When students are like, it doesn't matter whether I come to school or not, I'm not gonna be in trouble. And
Agreed.
if that's the case, then they might sleep in, miss first hour, and they might not come in until later. So the accountability, I know, is what Mr. Vecchione has been working on with the staff, that next year there needs to be more accountability. They're looking at doing in-school suspension and things, not out-of-school suspension. You have to come in and you have to spend some time. There's different, I guess there's both carrot and stick in their plans for next year, but attendance is one of their biggest goals, and accountability is what I would say is at the center of it.
Thank you.
Can I
You're welcome.
interrupt?
Oh, sure.
Is this something we can add to the academic committee meeting? Maybe we
Sure,
should
that'd be
have a
great.
discussion there.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Just budget-wise, do you have an estimate of what the underwater amount of the bridge is?
I don't know that the bridge is underwater because we use 31A funds to pay for the teaching staff there. So I don't know financially the bridge is causing a deficit in the district, but I need to put the numbers together to make sure for that.
What are the expenses? What are the expenses roughly of the bridge?
750,000 approximately.
I was gonna say, it's mainly your instructional staff.
750 is
leadership.
the last time we
Yep.
did the fiscal analysis of the bridge, was around approximately.
And how many classrooms roughly?
Classrooms, we have 5 traditional classroom teachers, and then we have a special education teacher, and,
But
so-
like seats, like classroom seats, roughly five classrooms. of
5 classrooms.
Seats.
And then, since you mentioned 31A, have you looked, so both the House and the Senate have very different proposals for 31A funding. Have you looked to see which one is more beneficial and taken any of that into account in your budget assumptions?
No, because they're different, I would always stay with what I have until I have a reason to change it. And I've heard no reason to change it, so I have not. But it's something it's a possibility that it could be It could be changed based upon what the final state budget looks like.
Mrs. Survey, were you talking double A or single A?
Single A.
Single A, got it.
Yeah.
The Senate is moving to a weighted funding formula, which would add additional weights to the FTEs that qualify for 31A funding versus just a categorical funding.
I'll tell you from my lens, the weighted funding never really benefits districts like Brighton.
Correct.
Because we usually,
percentage
we just
for-
don't, we don't have a lot of students in the groups that get those weighted
Right.
funding formulas. But we haven't done a full analysis, though.
I just quickly looked at the fiscal analysis, and it looks like about a $45,000 addition in the House for 31A that is not weighted, a $229,000 addition for the Senate, which is weighted.
Right? That's great.
Anything else?
Thank you, Dave.
Welcome.
All right, so that concludes the discussion regarding the budget, the proposed final budget for this year and the budget for next year. There was information that's been provided regarding capital priority listing. Obviously, one of the conversations that we have been having, and Mr. Jones referenced it in, as part of his discussion regarding we've got the capital improvement account that is in the current budget. That is about 4.1 million that's unallocated. Is that? Correct. Yes. So about 4.1 million that is unallocated. The spreadsheet that everyone has been provided is a breakdown of the existing capital upgrades needed and also a listing of new capital projects. And these items have been discussed over the course of probably the past year plus in Facilities Committee and obviously as part of the bond conversation. And so, ultimately, I think, in light of what transpired with the bond vote, the question that the board has to ask is, are we going to, at this juncture, move forward with the expenditure of the, of what's left in the capital account? And if so, are we going to, the process for identifying what those will be? My understanding is that although there's currently 4.1 that's unallocated, we've already previously approved the purchase of the chiller for the high school. We're in the process of getting the bids for the labor, and that's,
We're still waiting for the documentation in order to put together the RFP for the installation of the chillers. Our architects are telling me that will be in right around, they're thinking June 8th. So we'll be able to put together the RFP after that and then get it out on the street.
Could I just really quickly, Mr. Jones, you were saying that you were recommending that you earmark like $1 million just in case,
When we
depending?
talk to the trained folks, they will tell you that count on about whatever it costs for you to put, for the materials, count about at least 50% to be used for the installation.
So would you say then like 3.1 is
I
what the
would say
board should
3.1
be
is
talking
what
about
you have
tonight?
to work with.
If
Yep.
possible?
I have a question about the sheet. One thing that stuck out to me was the transportation parking lot. There was 425,000 that said it was supposed to be in the 2019 bond and the funds were repurposed. What happened? I know this is before your time.
I know I say
I know.
I can't
I'm
answer
sorry.
that, so.
Can anybody
don't.
answer that?
Someone that was on the board before,
That was on the
maybe?
board before us? That knows?
There was still some improvements made there. Some of the parking lot was taken care of. However, I can't give you a list of items that it was specifically used for.
But it was shifted
One-
from that project to something else.
Pardon?
It was shifted
Some
from
of it
that
was,
project
we
to
decided
something else.
that the rest of the parking lot could last a little longer, and we wanted to use the money on something else.
Where did this come from then, where it says the funds were repurposed? Like, where did that come from then? You weren't here, Dave, so where did this come from on this sheet?
Well, I put that in there because when I investigated this, I was told that this was something that was planned to be done with the 2019 bond funds, but it was not. So somewhere along the way.
Who told you
So,
that?
so this was the understanding, I did. Ken could explain this, that I think it was supposed to be the entire transportation
Originally, we
lot, and
talked
then it
about-
ended up being half.
Being like half where,
it
the
ended
areas
up
where the
being
buses
used-
were parked, we didn't do, but the drive area, it was about safety for walking
Right,
and things
and
like
then
that.
whatever was allocated there was used towards something else. I don't know what
I
that
think we
was.
did the
I
bus.
didn't join the district
I think we
till
did the bus
2020.
wash then, too.
Is that what it was, bus wash?
At that
Something
point,
like that.
yeah.
So yeah, it started with the full lot and then it ended up being partial lot.
Yeah,
So that's my understanding,
that is correct.
whether it's repurposed, whatever the word might be, but
Yeah.
I have a question about the curriculum. It was mentioned earlier. I know we upped this per student account, $10, right? Because we're going to be purchasing these materials for ELA essentially. But do we know what that approximate cost will be for next year? And is that a recurring thing where we'll be investing every year after that? Or is it a one-time cost for resource materials?
So we're going to get this directly from Ms. Boyd and Ms. Alexander here shortly, and I know the academic committee is going to get it next Monday. I believe that it is about $500,000, and that includes training. There's a multi-year, I'm trying to they showed me the document, and I think it's a certain number of dollars over the year. So I'm not going to go down that pathway.
If you don't know
I'm not
it,
100% sure of it, but I believe that Mr. Jones has earmarked $500,000 for ELA implementation
For just next year?
for next year, but next year is the year where most of the materials are being bought that will last for multiple years.
Right,
It's
I
not
guess my
500
question is,
It's not 500 a
recurring
year.
cost or legacy cost beyond that, are we expecting, just like, so my ask would
Yes.
be, and maybe we can get this from them
Yeah.
prior to the academic meeting, is what beyond next year do we think those costs will be?
There are consumables that come each
Right.
year. It is not 500,000.
Okay,
It
so
is much less.
significantly
They
less.
have that in the proposal that you will all see.
Okay,
I just
fantastic.
don't remember what the exact number was.
Okay.
So Roger, from a process standpoint, tonight, do you have a recommendation on how we should kind of tackle this? Because see, this is obviously like CapEx facility stuff. There's obviously the comments earlier, which I agree with, like there's big chunks of meat on the budget bone that we need to have some conversations about, like the bridge program and others. So I'm willing to play ball here. I'm seeking, just so we have like a kind of proposed.
I mean, I
path.
think it would be prudent, obviously, we'll get through the budget. I think it'd be prudent for perhaps the facilities committee to talk about this list, to talk about, their perspective on, how that money might be allocated, the timing of it, and prioritizing that, because, that obviously is something that should be vetted through that committee. I mean, this is, these are essentially facility improvements. And then, at that point in time, we can have a broader board conversation regarding, how we might decide as a group to allocate the expenditure of these funds.
Actually, I think it's very important for us to look, there are many things on this list that, it can't all be done at once, but we can certainly do it over the course of a couple of years. Come up with a plan. Some of these things are must-dos, some of these things are should-be doing, and there's a couple smaller expenses on some things that maybe we just do it because it would make life better for some people. But I would like to put it together like that. I know that there's a chart out there. I think we were all copied on that text or email from you tonight, Dr. Outlaw. It kind of listed off of one of our requests from the community as to what they felt was most important. We can use those numbers. It kind of lists those in order. Right.
Okay, I know we didn't all get
And,
it.
yeah, and, I mean, that's a great list to look at because the community, it kind of tells us where the community thought we should be spending it. And a lot of those are on this list, not necessarily in this order, but definitely on this list. So that'd be a great way to weigh in and say, okay, we've got this money, this is something that has to be done, and oh, look, it was important to the community, according to the poll. Those are no-brainers. We can set it up that way. And there, I mean, it actually was almost the way you would think it was gonna land. I mean, there's not really a lot of surprises in that. But there's a couple things that I think are very important that we need to plan for somehow, but like these vestibule areas, these areas, they're, in my opinion, they're some of the highest, should be highest on the list, it's what we do, but they're gonna cost a lot more because we have to change structure in order to do it. And so they're not gonna be, you know, $1 million or less dollars.
So here's
or
what
a
I don't
couple million
understand. So first, I don't know how this was, like, the formatting on this. It says on the bottom, like, new capital projects. Everybody on this board knows I've personally been advocating, and I'm gonna advocate tonight, for air conditioning in the gym.
Yes, let me explain.
That's not a new
Yes.
capital project.
No, no, no.
We've
let
talked
me-
about it
let-
at the
Let me
facility.
explain to you
Okay,
what I
I'm
meant.
listening.
Okay, so the top category are existing facilities item. So the well,
So like temperature-controlled orchestra storage is an existing capital upgrades needed item?
no, let me explain the difference
Okay.
between the top category and the bottom category.
I'm listening.
The top category is upgrading an existing space. The bottom category is more of something that is, we've never had before that's new. That's the only reason I separated them.
Okay,
That's the only reason why.
so Dave, I think the world of you. You know that.
So it is. but-
Explain this to me.
Okay,
Upgrading the air conditioning or putting new air conditioning that does not exist in the existing gym that we've had since the school was built, how is that different from in the same building, the high school, putting in a temperature-controlled orchestra storage? How is it different?
If I may, I think what I understand is, these are areas where either we're replacing it or renewing it for a reason, because it's getting old or it's not working or something like that. The bottom ones, we don't have an air conditioner in there, so that would be a brand-new thing that we'd be doing,
Yeah,
is
that's not
adding an
What
air conditioner.
temperature-controlled storage do we have right now?
We just have regular storage.
Agreed.
And they
Agreed.
they
And we
have
just
temporary units in
A
those.
regular gym in the gym.
They-
That's not temperature
I
controlled.
think this, we can.
It's ridiculous.
Well, we can just eliminate the new capital projects
I mean,
subtitle and
just
just put them
cross
all
off
together.
that. Just what I was gonna
I
suggest.
agree.
Cross
I
off the
agree.
That
heading.
would solve it.
I
Yeah.
agree.
Let's do that.
So I'm just
cross
wondering,
that
why is
out.
it separated?
It's gone.
It's strange to me,
it's the way I looked at it.
okay?
In order to separate them out that way, it is like not meant to prioritize or anything like that. It is just, to me, as I looked at it, is, okay, let's look at projects where we're upgrading something that already exists, and then what type of stuff are something that is new to the district. That is it.
I
So
get why
if
you
you
did
want to
that.
put them all together, put them all together, and they're meant to be prioritized all together.
I get why you did that, because this is, because some of these, with the definitions behind them, you know, yeah, Hilton New Well, it's here, it says, school closes when the well fails, so that's very
When have we at the
important.
facility committee, I don't recall having a conversation about the temperature-controlled orchestra storage being, like, it literally says, there's not even an estimate.
Right.
Where did that come from? How is that on this list
Just a list
for
of
tonight?
things.
So this list is a list that I asked Dave and Scott to put together. I said, can you put together a list?
Why do we have a facility committee then? When we meet at the facility committee, and I vented on Katie at the last meeting, we've met, this is why I think it's such a joke. We met at a facility committee multiple times. This is before the bond discussion, and said, what are the high-priority facility projects for the district? And we worked with Dave. This is when we had almost $10 million in the capital project budget. I sat at this board table, it's all in the public record, and said, why aren't we allocating the millions of dollars this district has to make basic facility improvements that we as a facility committee have agreed on? And the feedback was, and it's in the public record, we don't want to move forward with those initiatives because we want to put a bond in front of the community and literally use those items as a bribe to get the community members to vote for the bond in order to get the thing funded. Let's wait until the bond, it's in the record, on video. Watch the video. So once the bond, we get clarity on the bond, we'll come back to the list.
And here's the list.
And I told Katie, we meet in the facility committee meeting, we develop a list, we come to the board, we present the list, no, we're not gonna use any of the $10 million that we have, we're gonna wait for the bond. We go put a bond in front of the community, they turn it down, and voila, now the superintendent and Dave have a list, and the temperature-controlled orchestra storage is on the list. We never, ever put it on our high-priority list for the facility committee. I'm positive of that.
And so-
And this is what's super frustrating about this whole process. It's so bastardized. It truly is. It's super
I
frustrating.
remember a conversation about, let's wait till the bond.
Thank you, Ken. Don't be honest in front of, don't tell the truth here.
We had this discussion, but we didn't say, let's use this as bait to get them to say yes.
My words,
The conversation
but
went,
that's my words.
let's see if we've got more on our list than we can do with our funds. So let's see if we can pass a bond. Then we decide what we want to use this money for versus what we could do in the bond. Because some of this stuff is never going to get done with our little chunk of change that we've got saved.
We also.
That was the conversation, 100%. Why would we go forward with something when we might be able to do more in that building if we had a bond? We don't, so now we're revisiting. We have to go backwards now. We have to see, okay, that's gone. Now what can we do? That's what this is. Whether it's
I'm
put
in full
together the
agreement,
way
but
we
who's
all like
putting-
it or not,
Who's adding temperature-controlled orchestra storage to this list?
I have
for
no
the
idea why
workshop
that was
tonight?
added,
If
but
you
I'm
don't
not
like it,
gonna
then don't
dwell
talk about it
on
at the
it.
committee meeting,
But it's
Andy.
the
I mean,
process.
it's
It's
not
the
the process.
process.
We've got a list.
I think we
You
can
said,
probably
well,
cross
how
it
should we go
off
about
based on
this?
this
I
conversation.
said, how do you go about it? You have another facilities committee meeting,
Yeah.
which will be the first one since the bond did not pass, and you talk, now we're gonna
Thought
talk
the whole
about
intent of the
putting.
workshop was to agree on what the priority, list of priorities was.
Didn't you
No,
have
the-
something that you
wasn't
wanted to
it-
suggest that we go forward on?
Yes, I do.
What do you want to do?
I want to scratch the temperature-controlled orchestra storage. It's not a high
Okay.
priority for the district.
Okay.
I want to scratch the BHS oxygen bleachers. People can sit in the bleachers they've been sitting with since, says installed in 1992.
Yeah.
Lasted since, people have sat there since 92. Let's keep it up. The BHS main gym bleachers, been there since 92. The people, sit on them all the time, no problem. Transportation parking lot, our transportation parking lot has served the district as is. Let's keep it the way it is.
Do you have anything that you want to put forward for us to do?
Chromebook replacements, let's scratch those because I was a part of a board meeting a year ago where we authorized a significant expenditure to go buy new Chromebooks for Brighton schools.
Mm-hmm.
I have a laptop I use that's many years old. You can renew licenses without a problem.
We have a more conversation about that
Okay,
later,
could-
because those things don't
guys,
last
quick-
forever.
can we go-
Slow down
yeah, can we-
here, 'cause I
hold on,
feel
hold
like
on.
we're
First
like
of all-
just
first-
eliminating random things.
Well, we're not
without a
eliminating
discussion.
anything, because this is your wish list. Ken might have a wish list, I might
Not
have a
in my
wish list.
wish list.
So
He
my
asked me
point
what-
is,
he asked me
okay,
what
but my
I'm
point is
recommending, and I'm
that
giving
if
you
you want a
recommendations.
process, if you want to follow the process, then what we'll do is, you have a facilities committee meeting, you can review this, you can add to this list if you want to, okay? That's certainly your prerogative. Hold on. Timing-wise, we should, first of all, wait until we have the final bid that's accepted for the labor for the chiller, because that's gonna tell us exactly the amount of money that's left, right? I mean, right now, we're just saying maybe 3.1 million. I mean, we don't know what that number is until we actually get the bid back. So timing-wise, which is what you're having all kinds of heartburn about with
it
the
is.
timing,
I am.
is that it's premature, is the bottom line. So all of this grandstanding and heartburn that we're having here tonight over this.
There's no
is-
grandstanding for
well,
me.
there
My
is.
message has been very clear from the beginning,
You know,
including when we, before the
interjecting
bond.
rhetoric like bribery, that's grandstanding, Andy, okay?
Roger,
So let me
you were
finish,
on
no, let me
record,
finish,
you're
let me
on
finish.
record stating, and I brought this up at our facility committee meeting.
Yeah.
So this isn't, I'm not saying this for the first time, I'm not grandstanding. I brought it up with 4 people in the room when we met. I was told directly in this meeting environment, public meeting, that we should wait until the bond, the community votes on the bond.
Yeah.
Before allocating the funds that were in the capital budget and some of the initiatives that I wanted and advocated at the board table to fund with those dollars, I was told, we as a board should let the community vote on the bond, not allocate the funds, wait for the community to vote, and the premise was use the bond dollars to fund and use those initiatives to get people out to vote for the bond, and specifically the high school air conditioning was one of the items we discussed that, because people are hot, they're uncomfortable, it'll be a motivator for them to vote for the bond. And the band stuff was the same way.
Here, okay, I have a different understanding about that.
Yes.
half.
Yeah,
I think we all do, but
that's
that's
fine.
okay, listen.
I agree.
This was the night that we were gonna come and say, okay, we didn't pass the bond, now what are we gonna do?
Correct, Ken?
Right, so how are we gonna
do
prioritize
we
those
wanna do?
funds and what that process will look like? And that's what we're talking about.
Let's do it.
Why-
I thought you said go back
why
to
you
the
think this is a
facility committee
joke?
that we just came from.
We also had another list that we made, if you recall, at the facilities meeting where we looked at by So we have a lot more things than just this.
And where is that list?
On my laptop.
Not here.
Well, some of it is.
But we're not voting on
A lot
this
of
here
effort into
tonight,
that.
Andy. I mean, that's the point, is that this wasn't meant to have a vote tonight. I mean, this is where we're gonna start the conversation. We still need to know how much it's gonna cost for the labor for the chiller. If you don't wanna have that discussion in the committee, facilities committee, then fine, we'll bring it back to the full board.
Roger, we've
I
had
think-
it 20 times. Like, what do you mean, have the conversation? We have a list. The list, there's a list.
Right.
What more do we need? What do we have to discuss? What is
Well-
there to discuss?
For example, I would suggest, this is me personally, I'm not on the facility committee, but I would be certainly something I would recommend that the conversation take
Okay.
place, is, so security is obviously a very important priority. It's one of the top ones in the surveying. So we've got the vestibules. Vestibules are very important, but the lockout system is also very important, okay? That's not on, the lockout system is not on here.
know what
So
I've-
hold
Go
on,
ahead, I'll let you
hold
finish.
on.
Go ahead.
What I would like to know from our security team is where they prioritize the vestibules versus the lockout system, if we're going to put our prioritization eggs in the safety security basket, right? So my point is that there's additional information, I think, that's needed to be further discussed, knowing that we've got a much more limited pool of funds to work with than we would have had, obviously, if the bond had passed, then this whole conversation would be academic. But since it didn't, and since we have a finite amount of funds, and we have varying degrees of priority of what each board member views is important, then we need to have the due diligence done to come back to the board and have that conversation and a decision regarding how these funds are gonna be allocated. That's my perspective.
So, safety in the vestibules. I sat at the same board table, had multiple conversations with Dr. Outlaw and the board regarding safety years ago. And safety consultants were brought in. We had them come into meetings with representations of how they were going to put tint on all of the different windows in the school district. Do you remember that? Yeah. And the feedback, when I was questioning safety, to me, in the board meetings, multiple, was what? What was the feedback that you gave?
For safety?
The third-party consultants have come in and determined that our BHS, Brighton Area School, is rock solid. We have a phenomenal safety program, safety system in place. We don't need any additional dollars spent on safety because we've covered every nook and cranny. They've done studies of the perimeters. And when we went into this bond, I found it was like, all of a sudden we have people on the board, including the superintendent, sending communication out into the public saying, safety is critically important to Brighton area schools and we need to make multi-million-dollar investments in vestibules. And I was ridiculed and mocked at this very chair years ago when I first joined the board saying, what are we doing to advance safety in the district? And I was told by you directly in board meetings that the district safety is rock solid.
We are. We are ahead of most, but we're never going to arrive at the station. There's always
Okay.
improvements. And if you were to bring in our police chief,
And the
our
police
sheriff,
came in all those
and we
meetings, remember
set
that?
them here and we say, what is it that we need to invest in? They're going to tell you two things at least. One is going to be to make sure you have secure vestibules. The second one they're going to say is you should do the lockout system. I was brought into a meeting last year with our sheriff and others for them to advocate that we do a lockout system. That comes from our law enforcement folks. That is from them. Both of these are from them. That's the next thing. But are we doing a great job? Yes, because everybody's been committed to it, because we haven't been flat-footed. This is the next step.
Do you remember who advocated in this chair right here for a lockout system and we used the doors coming into this building to the board meetings when I said the doors are wide open? And said, why don't we have a lockout system? Do you remember those conversations?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so it's weird how you fast forward and all of a sudden now we're telling the community that we have all these safety gaps, we need to make millions of dollars of investments in safety, we need a lockout system, when I was ridiculed and mocked by you and others on this board, and this very chair I'm sitting in, where you said, why do we need to have a lockout system?
Andy, that's ridiculous.
It's true.
To say
It's
that
all in the
you
record.
ridicule
All in the
over
public
your
record.
advocacy for a
All of
lockout
it's in the
system.
public
It is
record.
in the public record, and we're not gonna sit here and let you
Can I-
rewrite history. So
Okay.
let's move forward. This is not productive. Ms. Urbane?
I was just going to say, I served on the Governor's Student Safety Commission. I do student safety stuff as a living. I was on the Brighton School Safety
And you
Commission.
graduated from U of M.
I did, go blue.
And your daughter graduated from U of M.
I
With a
was not.
4.0.
Not a 4.0. I was not on the board when you had those conversations, but I can tell you that this is an area that I have pushed on. So while the consultants and stuff said we were ahead of the game, there is still things to do. And so I have pushed the lockout system specifically as well, because I've seen a number of new things since the last bond come out. The lockout system didn't even exist when you did the last bond. So we couldn't have done it then. But it is also the number one thing that teachers say they want.
Why didn't we do it when we had, at the beginning of the year before? Why was it predicated on, why didn't we
Again-
do it and fund it with money that we have? We had the money.
Again,
We still have the money.
I came on the board last January, so, and then we were already starting to talk about the bond. And I think it's important. It is an important improvement that we need to do. I'm sorry that if you brought it up and felt ridiculed before, but again, this is new technology. It's also relatively new that the teachers surveyed say this is the number one thing that they want. But I'm with you
So
on doing.
Are we in unanimous agreement then that we want a lockout system for Brighton area schools? Should we vote on that now and give the district direction to do that?
Well, I think that,
Or do we
again,
need to go and debate that in the facilities committee meeting?
I mean, I haven't seen a dollar amount for that, so, and it's not even on this list, actually.
we don't
But
even, we don't know what our.
There's a couple options I want to point out that while we didn't take the 31A security money, we could have paid for a lot of this had we taken that money. However, there is a competitive grant tied to that money too. The per pupil money we decided not to take. The competitive grant money, we can use for things like improving vestibules and lockouts. We can make a decision to reverse our 31A decision based on courtroom stuff. We could make that decision today and still apply for that money for this fiscal year. So that is an option. There is going to be money next fiscal year for that as well. We can apply for those grants for some of that infrastructure, given that the bond didn't pass. The other thing I want to point out when we talked about curriculum, there's a lot of money out there to purchase curriculum. I was just looking up those 31M dollars. That $500,000 should largely be covered by grants to purchase new curriculum. We, under the previous assistant superintendent for instruction, decided not to apply for those grants because whatever reason, didn't want to go there. So we didn't apply for it for the current year, but we can for next year. So there is a lot of money out there.
We're in the process of applying. I just wanted to let you know.
Thank
that
you.
the
I am-
application
Just
just
a question
came
about
out.
that? Does that cover training too, or only resources?
I just saw there was some PD amounts
Okay.
as well.
So regarding the lockout and safety, it sounds like everyone is nodding their heads saying that we don't have the information that we need. There's more investigation that needs to be done. Is it fair then to assume we should scratch that from consideration for 2026, mindful of a budget being presented on June 8th? It's, I think, impractical then if the district doesn't have the data, the analysis, the studies, what costs will be, sourcing and contracting. Is it fair to say it's impractical that will be ready by June 8th?
Well, the budget, the money's there, the money's in the account, the budget will be approved. We don't have to decide any of this before June 8th, because the money is in the account, the money's already there, it's been there for
I
2
understand
years.
it's in the account. What I'm
Right.
saying is
No, in the budget- in the
spirit of
budget.
Giving direction to the administration on what will be used from the existing capital account that is not yet allocated, that we brought up at the beginning of Dave's presentation, versus what we would want to identify as capital expenditures for the next budget.
I disagree. Because what should happen is the budget should be approved in June. It'll have 4.1 million in the capital account.
Okay.
When we make a decision after the further investigation, whether it's July, August, September, that we're going to spend that money in the capital account for one or more of these items, when we go to approve the amended budget, which we are required to do in January, that will then reflect the funds no longer being in the capital account, and it will be shown as an expenditure, a capital expenditure that we have incurred since then.
So your recommendation is to roll the unallocated portion from 26 into 27?
Yes.
Okay.
Which is what we've done, the last 2 years since that money's been there.
Can I make a comment about the budget? So I think, whether it be 3.1 or 4.1, wherever we land at in that fund, my concern is beyond next year, and I'd like to see a little thought process beyond just the next year and what we're spending. If we have a $2.5 million roof that we have to replace, how are we saving money for that? If we spend every dime we have on 2 or 3 things, or 5, or whatever the list is, how do we then do these other items that I'm reading are potentially all needing to be replaced in the next 3 years? So I'm just requesting, again, we all have our own personal thing, but that we think about that when we're making this laundry list of items that we want and where the money is best spent, that we're also coming up with ways to save money to fund that capital improvement moving forward, because whether we go out for a sinking fund or another bond in the future at some point in a later date, we're talking about years from now before those things are actually coming to fruition and before those projects are actually done. And I see a lot of things on here that probably need to be done in the next 3 to 4 years. So that's my comment.
And I also recall from prior board meetings to Ms. Mark's comments, a lot of conversation regarding asking the administration to establish for the facilities teams a sustained budget for capital expenses. So what on the OpEx side and on the CapEx side is required to sustain the infrastructure that is BAS versus having to have the board go through the process that we're going through right now in establishing projects to allocate capital to. So one is how do we sustain what we have? 2 is with excess capital, where do we want to invest that excess capital based on where the board feels that there's a priority need?
I think I have some work to do in our committee, but
Can I-
I just think we need to dissect some of this stuff, because 1.525 safety upgrade for Horning secured vestibule, is that, that is not as much money as it was gonna be, the way we were gonna do it with the bond, because we were gonna move that door forward and make more space in there. So I just wanna know that number, where did that come from? It doesn't have to be answered today.
I can tell you where it
But
came
go
from.
ahead.
All these numbers came from, so the document we put together for the bond,
Right?
okay, had all the costs, but remember that those costs were loaded
Right.
with escalation factors for the future and architect fees
Right.
and
So
construction
this
manager
is just the
fees.
raw amount that we would
This
need?
is the raw amount from that report
Okay.
without any type of extra fees added to it.
And my question is, why isn't the document we're looking at tonight, the master document that the facilities committee worked on and created, prioritized list? Why are we not looking at that list tonight?
I think it's evolved is part of the reason.
One, I want to stand corrected. The 31AA grants closed 2 weeks ago, so that's not an option now, but it will be next year. So the other thing, I think we need to look, again, look at some of these other things on the priority. But I'm with you. I think we need to make some decisions. One of the things that Dave suggested up there was how much do we want to save? And he's recommending a minimum of $1 million. We as a board could say, you know what? We actually want it to be 1.5 million, and we want to put half of that into the capital account every year. Or, we need to make those decisions
100% agree.
and set the direction for Dave, and I think that's a good thing
Let's do
for us
it.
to discuss tonight.
Where
for
do you want to
sure.
start? I'm game, I'm with you.
I mean, my recommendation would at least go to 1.5 million. But I will say, we've got to come up with that from somewhere, right? And I know there were some folks that took issue with the fact that, okay, if we are putting more into facilities, where are we getting the money from? I mean, it's going to have to come from somewhere. I mean, I think daycare and some of the other community ed is a good start, I think, but it's got to come from somewhere. We allocated money for last budget, and we've got to decide, make some hard decisions. But I think we should
Is there anyone opposed to giving the administration direction to make the community ed programs break even or profitable?
We've talked about that at the Finance Committee meeting, and they're working on that over the next couple of years. I think it's unreasonable to expect it to happen in 1 year.
Okay, what does everybody else think?
I don't have a problem with giving them direction to come up with a plan for getting there. Absolutely, because I think we have an idea and we know it's something we should work toward, but maybe we can see a timeline. At this point, we think we could be here, at this point, we could be here, and at this point, it'd be Solomon. Something like that. I would support something like that. Just give them direction to get that information to us.
I think we need to come up with a plan. When you spoke earlier about where did that list go, and I said it was evolving, it was because we looked at it through a lens of if the bond passes, these are the items we don't want to pay for with the bond, right? Now it's shifted to, the bond didn't pass, so what do we need to do? So I would like to see us discuss.
I agree with you, Andy. Before I got on the board, there was never any money allocated to a capital improvement account. And when I got on the board, we started allocating some of those funds. Some of it ended up obviously being, the capital improvements were addressed in the 2019 bond. And as those projects were completed, and 2 or 3 years ago, we found ourselves in a position with regard to the revenue being a significant budget benefit, we decided to move, it was $6 million from the general fund into the capital account. That was a one-time transfer in 2023, I think, approximately. But prior to that, it was a much lower amount. I mean, there's never been any policy. There was no amount before I got on the board. We started to incrementally move some funds. Sometimes it was 20 grand, sometimes it was 50 grand. It wasn't anywhere near the $6.5 million transfer we made in 2023. I totally agree. We should be continuing to do that. It just, because that's something that, historically has never been done as part of the budgeting process. I don't think it's prudent for us to say, well, we're gonna chop programs in community ed to make that that part of it a balanced budget as part of our overall scheme of being able to come up with a budget where we allocate funds, $500,000 or whatever it is, into a community ed account. Or into a capital account, I'm sorry.
I don't understand why we think it's so difficult. Like, why would it take years to take a daycare program and fix whatever is contributing to the losses? Like,
I think we're taking like 2 years, like instead of
why does it take 6 months?
Well-
What's the delay?
Well, I mean, I could throw one out. So in this, it already hits a 12% increase.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the number would be, but is a 20% increase on our parents, is that reasonable in a single year?
They have the opportunity
I
to
mean-
go and pursue childcare elsewhere. Like, if they are unwilling to pay the market rate that allows us to provide that service at break even, not making a dollar profit, break even, they have the freedom and flexibility to seek an alternative source. No one's forcing them to be here.
I mean, that's a perspective on it. There's not a lot of daycare, there's not a lot of childcare that's out there, so I think the thought process is doing this over 2 years allows us to make adjustments. There's also pieces that we use as incentives to get employees in there, and we have a 2-year phase-in of this employee discount, something that we...
That's something that's very, very relevant to this conversation.
But that's about 200,000, if I'm somewhere in that range, and I think the next year, there was
It's not that much, it's about,
it used to be, right?
the total discount that we have recognized over the last years was about 180. We're taking that in 25% increments and chipping away at it. That's part of the process.
So we're running a $100,000 deficit.
No, this is last year. That's, you're crossing years. So,
I thought you said it's been in a deficit. It wasn't break even last year.
No, that is correct. So in the deficit that I had said for last year, there was about $180,000 worth of employee discounts that were in there. As we move to next year, as we're starting to move towards a break even, we're chipping away 25% a year to remove 25% of that discount every year to help us move towards break even.
I'm tracking with what you're saying, Dave. What was when you say last year, are you referring to the 26 budget or the 25?
I'm referring to 26.
Okay, me too.
Okay.
So what was the deficit in 26?
I'd have to look.
Roughly.
I would guess like 300.
Okay, so of that, $180,000 of that was related to us providing a discount to district employees.
Yes.
So over 50% of the deficit was the result of literally the district providing discounted childcare for district employees. That's kind of a relevant fact.
I have a question on that. Are we charging an amount that is way above what they could get anywhere else? Or are we actually giving them a discount on a discount? Because I think if they need daycare, I needed daycare, 3 kids, we did it. And I wasn't getting any offers for, discounts. My wife's a teacher, she wasn't getting a teacher discount. We did it. So are we gonna just lose all those people if we take away that discount, or do they still need the daycare? And it's a good program, and they like the program, and it's close to where they work, and it's worth it to them? Has that ever been asked?
So,
I mean,
so I think the destination over 2 years, the plan that they have been working on, at the end of, would it be the end of next fiscal year, they would be break even in fiscal '28. Is that correct, Dave? Okay, so the plan was this would be year 2, or this would be year 1, and then next year, it would be break even. So it was an incremental step, whatever that increment might be, and then next year, it would be break even. And I believe that is the goal with all of your community education programs, and that's something we talked about at the facility committee meeting multiple times in each one of the departments. Our direction from the facility committee is to get to break even. That is very clear. Finance committee, sorry. Finance committee is to get to break even. So that's what we've been working with. We've been meeting with every one of these departments. The childcare, a 2-year phase-in was a way to get there. That's what we came up with.
How long has
I
the
think it's a good
district been
plan.
subsidizing healthcare for employees? Tonight's the first night I've.
Childcare.
not health.
What did I say? Childcare, thank you.
Yeah, it's.
Point of clarification, I don't think it's all district employees, it's only the tot spot
Correct.
employees.
It's only what?
Only what?
Only the tot spot employees,
spot
it's not even all
employees.
district employees.
Oh,
So there's $180,000 of discount related to only the top spot employees?
Yes, because it is incredibly difficult to find people to do that work, and so it is a great incentive to them when you give them, yes,
Their wages are, they have low wages. It is not, they have lower wages.
What's
but
the
one of
total revenue
incentives-
that we take in?
I can, don't-
Rough numbers.
no, I'm, for 2027, with the increase in everything, about $2 million.
Wow.
So I think, look, from the administrative perspective, I think for the budget, I think the surplus area, I think that's one of the questions we have. Targeting $1 million is what Dave recommended. As far as the capital priority list, the capital improvement list, question number 1 is, do you want to spend it down? 2, what do you want to spend it on? That's it. That's what we need from the board. That is the direction that we need, and that's what ultimately we need, as we move forward.
Just a quick question, from a governance standpoint, how does the district authorize anybody to grant a $180,000 subsidy to employees of the Top Spot program? Like, just from a governance process standpoint, controls, like, does the board authorize the administration or the district to grant a $180,000 subsidy to employees of Top Spot?
Historically, this is what they have done long before. So I don't know, I don't know if it was a board action that made that decision. I wasn't here for that.
These guys were here, they must
I'm
have
just
made
saying
that decision.
right now, like right now, what's the mechanism for us as a board to have visibility into the fact that, to Alicia's earlier comment at the beginning of the meeting, $180,000 of funds coming into the district are, instead of being directed to students, are being directed to subsidize the daycare of employees of Hotspot, not even teachers. To his comment.
I think if we want to address that, it probably should go through the policy committee or the finance committee, one or the other, if we want to address
So
it in
there's no
policy.
real clarity right now tonight on how that, like what
But-
the controls are that are in place to make the board aware of that. I didn't know that was happening.
That was something that came to light during the finance committee, and I was equally as appalled as you are that, and quite frankly, I'm still appalled, not even the subsidies, it's the fact that if you're lucky enough to get a spot in Tot Spot, you get to pay less in daycare. And those people could be making well over six figures, it doesn't matter. We're subsidizing daycare for people who are lucky enough to get it. If they actually told me there was like, some income qualifier or something for us to subsidize, I might have a little different thought process.
quite
But right
sure
now,
our
it's
top-
literally just the thing. But
Hotspot employees are not making six figures. I mean,
not, that's not
or
our
the-
hospital, I'm
I
not
mean,
talking about the employee discount. I
That's
am
what you said,
talking.
that's what you presented.
No, I said, the outside of the employee discount, if you are lucky enough to get a spot in the lottery for Tot Spot, when you sign up, you get subsidized daycare versus somebody who has to go do it on the open market. And I just think that's wrong. This money should be going to help improve our literacy rates, quite frankly. But I guess right now, I would like to make a motion that we ask for that Dave look at a $1.5 million reserve so that we can put additional money into the facilities account and come up with a plan of how we're going to, as a district, reserve 1.5 million.
1.5 million into the,
Minimally.
into the capital account, so you're saying you want
No.
$2.5 million?
No, what he presented up there,
The minimum $1 million?
minimum of $1 million, I'm suggesting 1.5.
Minimum.
So you made a motion?
I would like to make that motion, yes.
Can I please ask for clarification? Do you want me to actually put into the budget to move $1.5 million from the general fund budget to the capital projects fund budget? Or just to make sure that the bottom line has a $1.5 million excess that can be allocated later down the
The
road?
second.
Okay, thank you. It's just it's my process, that's the only, how I do it.
We'll have to find reductions in order to do that. So we'll have to talk about what
But
that
let's
looks
also
like.
clarify.
and-
I thought the intent of the workshop tonight was to go through the budget and actually identify not just this discussion we've been having about facilities, but to actually drill into the proposed budget and as a board debate where there were opportunities to identify reductions. That's what I thought this whole workshop was about.
Okay, I'm sorry, but I have to ask one more question. Do you want that in 2026, or do you want that to put that into the 2027 budget?
The 2027
Okay,
budget.
thank you. So, I'm sorry, my understanding was that I was gonna go through the entire basis of my budget for next year, so you would know what parameters I put in.
So when are we as a board going to discuss the actual budget in line item detail and have discussions and debate over how we want the 2027 budget to be shaped?
Well, that'll be part of the public hearing on June 8th.
Okay.
You'll get as we've done in the past, that will be emailed whenever Dave finalizes that in advance. And then that document will be explained during the public hearing. And then we will have an opportunity to ask further questions at that point. If a majority of the board is not comfortable approving the budget because of either unanswered questions or they want to study it further, the majority of the board can table it, and we can have it scheduled for a special meeting at some point.
So there will be no board discussion prior to that public board meeting where we would then debate and discuss the line item budget and talk about what we want to fund, not fund, what we should fund, shouldn't fund. Like, we're just, Dave's coming in, presenting the budget, we're either going to vote in favor, vote not in favor, or bring up our concerns in the.
Yeah, as we've done every year. at that public hearing.
Again, I thought the whole intent of scheduling the workshop tonight was to like drill into the budget. That's what I thought.
This frankly has been more robust of a discussion than as we've done historically, where it was just on a for future action, where we didn't really have some of the more.
I don't disagree with you, Roger.
Right, so that was, you know,
I'm just saying, I was under the impression, based on our internal dialogue, that based on what transpired with the bond, this workshop was intended to be a place where we could debate and discuss the 2027 budget, what should be in, what should be out, facilities, and it turned into, go back to the facilities committee, have a conversation about this in committee, come back to us yet again with a list of priorities. We're gonna roll the funds that exist in the CapEx in from 26 into 27. Let's give a target to Dave to take $500,000 of reduction out of the proposed budget per se, but not have any substantive discussion or debate around what is in the 2027 budget, what should or shouldn't be in it.
we've been doing that debate for about the last hour of how.
Well, and I think he doesn't
it's-
know all those answers. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
No,
off.
that's okay, I mean, we're having.
You
these
don't have all those
conversations.
numbers yet.
Rich,
We-
like, what's,
Could we, as I've suggested on the academic committee side, but could we already post the finance committee on June 1? Can we allow, again, suspend our rules as a board like we did for the facilities committees and allow everyone who wants to attend that June 1 finance committee meeting to come and have, then you have at least some additional time to discuss and debate.
So it'd be a regular.
Like, basically, we're gonna have another workshop.
workshop.
Yeah, on June 1st, is what you're advocating.
For anyone that wants to attend.
Well, it's a workshop. I mean, if 7 people show up, it's a workshop. I mean, it's, however you want to characterize it.
Yeah. But we already notice it, so we're already complying with the Open Meetings Act.
so like the bridge program, I shared my thoughts a minute ago. In the prior meeting, I shared my thoughts. What does the other members of the board think about the current state of the bridge program?
As it relates to the budget, I mean, I don't think, there's nothing that I heard that would change my view of Dave's approach to the budget vis-à-vis the bridge. I mean, attendance is an issue, then that's gonna have to be addressed in some fashion. That's not gonna move the needle on the budget for
Do
20.
you feel that we as a board should continue to fund the bridge program in its existence today and continue to take the dollars that we've allocated in prior years and support the bridge program kind of the way we have been?
Yeah, the bridge program is not operating at a deficit, from my understanding. And the issue is the enrollment, and obviously, as has been discussed, there is a need to really look at the operations of the bridge, which if successful and increases the attendance, I mean, that certainly will have an impact on the future budgeting for the bridge. But we can only operate on what we're working with right now, which is based on the assumption, as I understand it, of a flat enrollment. There's not a projection of an increase or decrease, as I understand it. Is that correct?
Yeah, it may increase, it may decrease. The projection is flat.
Right.
It's harder to predict because there's so few students. It could be, 5 students up, 5 students down. It has a pretty big, margin for error on that.
Yeah, so, I mean, unless you have an idea of cuts you want to make, whether it's teachers, whether it's the facility, I mean, none of that has been
How long
something.
have we had the bridge program in existence at Brayton?
Long before my tenure on the board, I don't know.
2010, maybe it's when it became the bridge. Back in my day, it was the Phoenix High School. Before that, we've had alternative ed. I know I was here a long time ago. John and Miles, you were around.
Goes back to 1969.
Thank you. So, yeah, long time.
Those two.
So something that we brought up in the last meeting is, and I thought it was a good point, I forget who brought it up, Katie or someone, was it you, Alicia, the fact that they're here versus at the high school. And, to me, it seems that there would be a lot of value in getting them into the high school and do it in a controlled environment to eliminate all of the current proposed additional costs that we're now starting to see layered in. It was brought up tonight, like CTE for the bridge. We have a great CTE program. Like, just feels like we're kind of creating BAS, BHS 2.0 here versus having the students in a more controlled environment than the general student population, but having them on the same campus in the same environment. They can do recess, they can do breaks at times that are not forcing them into the general population if that's what they want. But why do we have them in a separate building here and have all the additional costs now that's starting to get, we need vans to transport them, we need this to, like, why aren't they in the high school in a controlled environment?
I'm definitely with you on that. I think right now, going into the 27 budget is probably too late to say completely change or pull the plug on the program. But I would like to have this discussion no later than, say, January for the next year, because I don't think we're doing these kids a service in the program that they're currently in. And it's a financial, I know you said it's more break even on the 31A, but you still get that 31A money whether they're in the high school or not. And I just think that it's a financial drain, the way it's operating, and that we should have a further discussion. I do believe it is too late to make significant changes for next year at this point, but we should, in the academic committee and in the finance committee, have discussions of what we're going to do with this program going forward. I expressed these reservations to Mr. Vecchione last meeting. I've expressed them to Dr. Outlaw when we were looking at posting for the director position. Like, look, if our director is leaving, this is maybe a good time to look at this. But I do believe that right now is probably too late for next year. But I am with you that we're not doing these kids we are doing these kids a disservice by continuing to operate the way we are.
Not really had a motion on the table.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask that, we kind of steamrolled it.
We did not get a second, so it
Well,
moves, but we can, yeah.
Did you say to explore the additional 500 grand, so it'd be 1.5, exploring 1.5, adding on, or
Well,
were
we
you
really
saying
probably
find
should
it?
have a second before we talk about it officially, but so if
I
somebody wants
wanted
to
to
second
clarify
it,
what she
then we
said,
can
though.
talk about it.
My motion is that we ask Mr. Jones to come up with a budget that shows an excess of 1.5 million so that we can look at where we want to, a minimum of 1.5 million, to explore options for using that for facilities funding in the future.
Wouldn't we need to have the existing facilities team and the administration
Yes.
establish and confirm how much it would cost to sustain the infrastructure that is BAS before we allocate any money? What if it's $5 million a year? What if it's $2.5 million a year? I'm very much in support of doing what you're suggesting, but again, it's like, wouldn't we want to know what it would cost?
Absolutely. I
And
think
then-
we need to
And then as a
know.
board, make that decision?
I think we need to know, but we also have to pass a budget by July 1. And so I am saying, okay, at this juncture, let's look at what a budget looks like with a 1.5 million reserve.
Yeah, if it doesn't come back favorably, we can have this discussion at the next meeting and change that.
Well,
What
okay.
if we ask the administration to come back to the finance committee on June 1st, Monday, with a suggested amount of money that it would cost to sustain the infrastructure that is BAS? I would hope that people who've been a part of the facilities team here for years and years would have a pretty good indication, and we have data to support it, what it costs to sustain the infrastructure in the school district.
I think that's true, but I think there's a lot of soft costs, and every person at this table is going to have the things that they believe should be
Like what?
included, right? I think we could have, because I don't necessarily disagree with saving additional money, but where you come up with that $500,000 is going to be, could be probably from multiple little buckets around the district where different people would have different opinions on where that's best saved. So maybe it's firmer requirement, like bare bones, what does it cost to run our like heating or cooling, like our bare minimum teaching stuff? Because we do have in this district, we're fortunate, we have a lot of extra things for our kids. And I think some people might say, I don't think we need that. Some people would say, we absolutely do not need air conditioning in our gyms. There is no way we should spend $900,000 on air conditioning the gym, right? They'd rather spend the money somewhere else. So I just feel like there's going to be a wide variety of what we think is the minimal money required to run the district. That's all I'm saying. There will be different opinions.
In my mind, including like projects, like project funding. I thought her recommendation was essentially a budget that would be used to maintain what we already have. So
Facility costs.
We look at our roof, what do we
Okay.
pay annually to have our roof leaks repaired? What do we pay to replace ceiling tiles that are water damaged? What do we pay to have, what was it, a few years ago, someone come in and reinforce the outside structure of a building that was leaking into the stairwell? What do we pay to have a HVAC company change filters on furnaces? And yeah, maybe some of that we do in-house, some of it we farm out to third parties. What are all those costs?
So
that we-
operational
to
operational
operate the
costs.
It's
district?
capital outlay, it's already in the
Okay.
budget. Dave's already done it.
It's also repair. So depending on what happens, it can either be in the repair budget or it's in the capital outlay budget.
And one thing you brought up before, which is valid, is like the AstroTurf. Since I've been on the board, we had to come in, we need to do maintenance on the AstroTurf. Do you approve hiring this third party to come in and sprinkle black dust on the AstroTurf? And you said, why is that not in the budget? Good question. Is it today? It is.
I think it's now part of the athletic budget.
And so Dave has done this. He has gone department by department, building by building, and it is in this budget. So the year-to-year cost, the capital outlay, repairs is in the budget that you just had framed up, and it will be in what is in the budget presentation for the facility committee on the 1st and for the 8th. So that's already in there. So if you're going above and beyond, are you talking about covering projects? Is that what that's for?
What was your intent? Was it like OpEx support to the facilities, or was it for project specific, new project funding?
It was more like this list of new projects.
For new
that we
project
could-
funding. So we can come back with a proposal for you all, and we can put our head together, and we'll come back with a proposal, and we'll bring it on June 1st. Okay?
So, we had a motion, we had a second, now we're still fizzing. Do we have to adapt that?
Where are we at? Well, I think, are we
Where are
starting?
you at?
Well, I think, are you still gonna withdraw your motion?
I mean,
If it's-
it doesn't have to, I guess, be a motion to vote on if they're
Just
willing to come.
we're just do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay,
Okay.
good.
Okay, so we'll connect on
Yep.
that, so, okay.
Anything further? Okay, that concludes the workshop. Our next regular meeting will be on June 8th at 7 PM, and this meeting is adjourned.